This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Welcome back to Resonance. I'm Mike Ferrell, joined again by my comrades Steve Azar from Mississippi, now sitting in Arkansas. We're not quite sure where, but he's somewhere there. And of course, Randy Harrington up in the great northwest of Oregon. And Randy's bright and early this morning. He's got his coffee. He's ready to roll. So today we're going to have a really interesting show because we're going to talk about Steve's favorite topic today, which is AI. And you can't read or see anything today without listening or hearing about AI and what's going on with it, all the money, the trillions of dollars that are being pumped into it, all of those kinds of things. But it was interesting earlier this week, Pope Leo XIV came out with his first papal encyclical called Magnifica Humanitas. We're going to throw a little Latin at everybody today.
I needed that this morning.
And magnificent humanity is what he talks about. And it is the role of human dignity in AI. And I'm just going to start with a quote from that document. Humanity, created by God in all its grandeur, is today facing a pivotal choice, either to construct a new Tower of Babel or to build the city in which God and humanity dwell together. That was kind of the opening statement of his document. So I know, Randy, you've done a lot of work in this whole idea of AI. I've obviously done a lot of work in the area of human dignity, and Steve is just pissed off about AI. So, you know,
I'm pissed off about certain elements of it.
Exactly.
That we saw. I'm interrupting, but I got to say this.
No, it's all right.
You've worked me up. We saw what happened musically when Napster came along. It affected me and a lot of my friends in a huge way financially. So you work your whole life towards something, and all of a sudden everybody's getting something for free, which led to streaming. The industry wasn't prepared. The government wasn't prepared to protect the industry, the rights that the industry and the creator had, right? And so there's a lot of people's lives are at stake, not just the person that's writing it, and the person that's recording it, and all those people that go on tour, all those truck drivers and bus drivers and union workers and your crew and your band and their families. You start looking at, and that's just one person that's responsible. You know, I felt very responsible for a lot of people. And when sales didn't match the folks showing up at concerts, so many people are coming, and the record label was not even listening. And you're talking about one of the biggest record labels in the world was not listening because they didn't think it would matter. That's how. So you're dealing with, obviously, that's people listening are going to go, well, that's y'all's fault. You're right. It is our fault. We were really, it was ridiculously dumb that we allowed things to happen without trying to fight for it. But here's what worries me about AI. They're going to allow the wild frontier just to do its thing. And then they're going to go, oh, we'll go back and fix that. Well, sometimes in certain avenues of life and business and careers, it's too late to fix that. And so then you're just left with, okay, how can we salvage that? And I'm worried about that part of it. What's going to be salvaged in our business when folks, I got so many friends, I got doctor friends sending me their songs they're writing and recording, and they're making have an album and da-da-da-da. And I love them with all my heart, but, I can't use AI to go set up a clinic and start working on patients, although I may try. I told them I'm going to try. Yeah. What's the difference? What's the difference here?
It's interesting, too. I just saw on the news this morning, the Tribeca Film Festival is featuring a film that was completely AI generated. No actors, no sets, no nothing. It was strictly done by AI. And it sounds like it's kind of an interesting story. It's
Yeah, those are all over
people
YouTube. I mean, you
that
can.
escaped from Iran, but I think we see that. But Steve, I think you make a great point, is that
Thank you.
when you go back to try and fix it, and that's really what Pope Leo spoke about in this document, is that we have to understand that human dignity has to come first, because once you create these AI systems, it's virtually impossible to go backwards and correct
Exactly.
how it impacts human dignity. And I know there's a lot of discussion and news today about this whole idea of AI and the fact that it's taking jobs away and those kinds of things. And Randy, I know you've done a lot of research and work in that area. Why don't you chime in and talk about what you see?
Well, boy, it's talk about a big old deep well there. There is a lot going on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways we can approach it. And one of the interesting things as we're having this conversation is that everyone who's listening to this conversation has their own very legitimate point of view and
Sure.
experience as it relates to AI. Some people know of it as just something that's kind of over there and they've heard wisps about it. Other people see it as the most important thing in the universe. Everybody's somewhere in between, right? Trying to sort it all out. So we begin with this idea that we all have these predisposed ideas ourselves about AI. One of the biggest things I think is from a leadership perspective that the early research is showing is that the successful leader is going to look at AI as a source of, or maybe even cause of, organizational transformation. And you need to think about it as a transformative variable in your organization. And then, so the key word is transformative at a comprehensive level. The people that are screwing up with AI are saying, hey, get our tech guy in here. Hey, Ferrell, you're our tech guy. Would you go sort out this AI stuff for us? Figure out where you can plug it in and, whatever. And just, my board's saying I need to be AI ready. So I'm going to be able to go and say, yeah, Ferrell's got that going for it. Right? That's the mistake. If somehow it becomes a technology piece or a one-time investment or anything like that, no. This is about a lifestyle change for your organization. It's going to permeate the organization, and it is going to fundamentally transform the way you do your business, whether you like it or not. And this is where this is the Azar response. It doesn't matter. If I'm in the healthcare business, I have no option but to begin deploying AI agents if I'm going to be in any way competitive. And so this is one of those this is the bitter pill that we all have to swallow, or it's the pill that we swallow and go, okay, I'm going to figure this stuff out. I'm going to come at this from a point of view that actually works. So if we follow the research one more step down, we say, okay, well, what does work, smarty pants? Well, what seems to work is this idea of bringing a problem first discipline. And what that means is solve a problem with it. Don't just say, hey, let's do some AI. Let's say we have got to reduce the amount of time it's taking for people to be able to get credit with us. Everybody else can do this in 5 seconds. Why is it taking us a day? Well, that's the kind of thing. Let's solve that problem with
I get
AI.
that.
If you take that approach and you start by solving specific problems, you are bringing people into it. They're owning it. You cannot solve that problem without people putting the inputs in and figuring it out. And so you kill two birds with that. You're bringing AI in, but you're also engaging your people in a way that allows them to see, oh my God, you know what? Now we have this system. Not only can people find out their credit worthiness in 5 seconds, but now that just saved me. I'll hear numbers like this, 60 hours a month. This new thing is just changed my job to the tune of I now have 60 hours free where I can be deployed to do something else.
Okay. That is a very important point where I get. So I'm going to, first of all, you're probably saying, Steve, wake up, get in with it. I am with it. And I do have my cake and eat it too. So I'm going to explain to you why, but let me give you an example. I get that because I am really busy right now. And when I haven't co-written a song, I've been writing all by myself because I moved back to Mississippi and I like to write by myself. And so, but you do the co-writing thing a lot in Nashville when you're there. It's just a community and it's a beautiful thing. having something to share. So I had this one song that I recently wrote that I share with you guys that had been sitting on my mind a while. And I felt like this girl that I'd gotten to know, really great songwriter, successful artist, successful songwriter. I felt like she'd be the one to sort of help me take it where it needs to go. And she was. And so right after we were done, she played and sang it. We did it via Zoom. She's in Nashville. I'm down in the Delta. And she goes, "Hey, I'm going to run this thing through this AI program." And it was like, to me, it was like what language you just, you just got gibberish. I don't know what you're saying. And we talked about instruments. It wants to be piano driven because I started it and wrote it on piano in the beginning. And she pulls this demo out. No, no, no. So she sends it to me. She had choices. It gives you 3 choices, right? And I was going like, my God, that's 85% of what I would have done. So I'm going like, okay, so I understand that what that's going to do is that's going to save me time without calling a band in session and going in and spending a day working on a demo and then going in to get it mixed. And it's going to save me a ton of money, right? But it's going to eliminate that creative side that you were going to be able to. There's something so wonderful about writing something and then going in and taking it to the next place and sharing it with other musicians and all that. I get the fact that it saves me a lot of time, and it also lets you know what you have. Is this worthy? Like, is it worth even going to spend the money on? It's a good tool for that. But when you start having an all AI generated song to become number one, which it did before Christmas, that's where I'll draw the line. And I know you're going, okay, Steve, there's plenty of room for everything.
No,
But
I understand your point.
there can only be one song number one in that genre that week. And it took the place of something that came from a heart and soul and that had a lot of work and a lot of people involved and a lot of lives at stake that was number two. There's a big difference between a number one record and a number two record. That's all I'm saying. It's winning the Super Bowl or not winning the Super Bowl. Okay, so I that stresses me about where we're heading, but I get the part which saves you time. I
Well,
understand,
this
and I
business
like parts of listen, I do like a lot of parts of AI. I'm starting to use it to help save me time in other avenues that I would have done personally, but it doesn't affect anybody else's world or work.
right. I mean, when you look at places like radiologists, for example, and the fact that they have AI now that can look at scans and x-rays with far more precision than the human eye, far more comprehensively, that can move much, much more quickly. And so now all of a sudden, a physician can have scans done in seconds and the AI can say, this is, check this out. And could it make the physician get sloppy? Sure. It's an issue. I mean, it could. It'd be like, well, I'm just going to trust the AI and it's going to, but what's happening is that's not what's happening. What's happening is it's really allowing the physician to look at oh, okay, here's where the problem is. And now you can take it a little step further. So it's speed.
I
And
get it.
efficient.
I'm
So
in.
yeah,
I
I
get it.
understand your point. So there are these distinctions, and I think this is what the Pope was getting to. And I'm going to come back over to you in just a second to really pull more out of that encyclical. And I want to tee you up with this too. I want you to define what an encyclical is for me, because I think I've got one stuck in my tooth in the back there. We'll see.
Well, that's what I would have said and believed, not you. Don't
But
act like you're Gilligan right now. Don't you do it.
well, I defer to my Catholic brother here to really bring the papacy.
Well,
to you.
I think it's, first to answer your question, a papal encyclical is typically a document that a pope creates, obviously with a lot of help. Pope Leo didn't just come up with this, last weekend and, sit down at the typewriter or, have it AI generated.
Yeah.
That would
But
be funny.
it is typically a statement that either strengthens or clarifies church doctrine.
Okay.
It's something along those lines, and that's probably a very rudimentary. I've got a lot of theologian friends that I'm sure would tell me, Ferrell, that's not even close. But that's my interpretation of it. Is it really is a document, and you don't see them very often.
Right.
I think Pope
So this is a
Francis.
big deal.
Yeah, I
This
think
is a
Pope
big
Francis
deal.
only did a handful of them in his time, as well as Benedict and Pope John Paul II. So,
Mm-hmm.
these are a big deal. And the fact that this was his very first one, I think, and done, what was interesting is that it was done on the 350th anniversary of Pope Leo XIII in his encyclical that really talked, and that encyclical really dealt with the whole idea of the common good. And it really, that goes back to the industrial revolution age where we had child labor and we had a lot of other social issues. And that document really defined what we call Catholic social teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Pope Leo to take that aspect and now apply that to what's going on from a technological standpoint in our world today with AI is a very telling aspect, because he really has this on his heart and on his mind that says we really have to be careful with this whole AI thing. One of the comments that he makes is in there is really talking about we have to not allow AI to be our primary communication, because when we do that, and I think it goes exactly to Steve's story about writing that music, you got it to 85, but you still had to take it to a human connection to finish it. And the difference being, if you did it all with AI, you just fire your band and say, well, I don't care about them, I'm just going to crank this sucker out on AI and I'm done. And I think this idea of human dignity says that we have to understand that in order for humanity to exist, there has to be that idea that we have that human connection that technology can't do. It's the reasoning.
Well, that will always be up close and personal, live. Anything you do together or in front of a crowd, or
Yep.
those things, I believe, are going to be even more important than ever. What you brought up something though. So if I decide, you know what, that demo is good enough, if it's moving, I believe it. It was in the moment. I'm going to use that to pitch to artists, and so I've eliminated my band from making anything or being a part of something wonderful. I hope, potentially wonderful. And I'm also eliminating my mix engineer and all those guys that are usually making part of their piece of their living. It's something they depend on. So that's where inside, and I really struggle with. I really struggle with it. I think I'm the guy that would really rather spend the time and the money for us all to get together and try to achieve the goals that we've always tried to achieve. But that's what you can tell that I'm a little bit waffling. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about those people, and what happens when I get to the point where I just don't have time, and that's an easier thing for me to do, just use the AI band, rather than, as far as when you write something, I could never imagine in my zillion years putting anything out that was AI. I got to have real musicians, and I got to have myself.
Yeah.
And it's just the thrill of being imperfect and trying to be perfect and never going to be perfect. And that's the thing about AI. It's sort of perfect. You know what I mean? Like you can tell it's not perfect because it's wrong in parts. It's cliche in parts, but it's sterile is the best way I can explain it. But the listener is just going to want to be moved, and it has the ability to create something within a minute that can move you. So that's scary, right?
I've given this a good bit of reflection, and this is going to sound kind of Pollyanna coming from me, and that is that we are very, very early days with AI.
Mm-hmm.
We're under 3 years with this, and yet we're also seeing the emergence of generations now are walking the earth who will have always had AI. We're starting there, but we're very early days here, very, very early days, and I think that the idea around the encyclical and going back to the the Industrial Revolution, early 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1930, Model T Fords, all that kind of stuff. That was profound changes. Just the idea that there was a train that went from one side of the country to the other side of the country changed the way we think about time. And so when we look backwards in history, we look at those things as if it was like, oh, well, they figured that out. Well, it was crazy. Back in the day. Just the idea that people would get on something that was moving that fast, just that physical thing was like holy smokes. So I think what I'm hopeful for, this is my Pollyanna piece. I heard a story of a 28-year-old who went on a trip with some other friends to Kyoto, Japan. And one of the things he wanted to do was to go to a ninja museum that's there. So he finds this ninja museum, and the person that's with him, they understood just a little bit of Japanese. They were able to read the sign that says, well, it's closed. It's appointment only, and you have to call this number, but you have to be able to speak Japanese. And so the kid uses his phone. He goes to Claude, the AI, and says, hey, what do you think I should do here? And Claude says, well, likelihood there's a store nearby where somebody does speak English and Japanese. Have them make the call for you. And he said they were in the museum 20 minutes later. And so here's why I think that story is relevant. What the young man did was use AI as a way of saying, can you help me solve this problem? Is there something I'm missing here? And sure enough, oh, that's what a good suggestion that is. And if you start looking at like AI, I saw this morning on my Claude, when I opened it up, it was like, hey, you're going to San Francisco. Here's like 5 walking tours of San Francisco you would just love. Okay, that's just cool stuff, right?
Sure.
I mean, why
I
not?
agree with that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen over time is we're going to sort out where this is working for us and where it is not. Humans are going to put it into its place. I don't know about you, but I'm already sick to death of AI generated images of whatever with whatever. I mean, to me, they're almost grotesque.
Yeah.
To look at.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of grotesque, so where are we going to draw a line when people are using it? They're using it in politics. They're using it in a lot of ways, and it's sort of a lot of hateful stuff, right? It was
Big
violent stuff, right? And so, but they're doing it all in the name of humor. Using a humorous sort of coat, if you might, like
Right,
coating
right.
around it. But the bottom line is, so I guess what I'm saying is, when is it going to get to the point where you're going to have to prove to someone that wasn't, they're going to get better at this, that you didn't do this act of whatever it was, right? You're going to get to the point where, and people believe anything. My mom still believes that I'm sending her a message on Facebook saying, I need money, or I need, I saw you at the club or the bar.
Right.
And my own
Right.
mom goes, hey, Steve, why'd you message me that? Mom, I didn't do that. I would never do that. I would call you or text you. And so what I'm worried about is that fraud is going to grow so huge. And at some point, a lot of people it's going to get hostile. You're going to see fights, literally physical fights, breakups, a lot of things, because even communication may not be able to fix.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key points that Pope Leo makes in this encyclical. He really talks about this idea that we have to keep moral responsibility human. As leaders, it's vital.
Yes.
The moral responsibility that comes from us and our organizations is still human. It's not AI generated. It's not something that we're going to allow AI to determine what's moral and what isn't moral.
Mike, but there's so many people so many people in the world. I'm sorry, you got me worked up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me get worked up. So many people in the world that don't give a flying frog about moral compass.
I know.
It's not in there. We talked about character on the last episode of Resonance and all that. They just don't care. So what is that going to look like as far as the beast coming out?
Right.
Like it's going to get crazy, guys.
And I think
I know
Yeah, I think that's the leadership responsibility, Steve. I think that as leaders of companies that offer these AI programs and services, it's there, and I think this is what Pope Leo is referring to. It's their responsibility. It's their moral responsibility to make sure that these tools aren't giving people the opportunity to create these hateful things and those kinds of things that are totally made up by AI. And I think I think that's a very, very, the genie's out of the bottle now. And
yeah, but
I think
Mike, who's gonna regulate that, and who's gonna get in trouble for doing something that actually could cause serious damage in somebody else's life?
and that's
Nobody. Nobody's going to be responsible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's where Pope Leo is saying this is a higher, we talk about higher purpose vision. Well, this is the highest purpose, that this is something that we have to demand as humanity, that we have to demand as human beings, to say we can't allow, and I think you're going to see more and more come out of this from the Catholic Church now that he's released this encyclical. I think from a moral responsibility standpoint, we can't rely, and he says it right in the document, governments, industries, economies can't rely on having AI create this stuff for us, because it's not human. And we have to understand that human dignity must come first and foremost before AI comes. We can't let AI get ahead of that. And I think that's really
spoken like a true monk guy, Ferrell theologian. You know what I'm saying? But you're right. I mean, we got to hope for that, right?
Yeah,
Randy?
yeah. And it's interesting because I kind of started formulating some thoughts on this from a leadership standpoint. And one of the things that he talks about and that's important for leaders is that we have to design justice right in from the start. So when we begin to build our organization and make decisions and that kind of thing in using AI and how we're going to use it and that kind of thing, we have to design this idea of justice first before we implement the AI that we're going to use for. So again, that's another idea and I think this is where leaders are going to need to be challenged. They're going to need to be challenged to say, yeah, AI can be a great tool. It can create efficiencies. It can create speed. It can create all of those kinds of things. But if it's creating those kinds of things at the cost of human dignity and justice and the common good, then we're not using it the right way.
What companies, okay, I'm just asking real quick, are going to have the patience, the statia, right, to take the time to wait and make sure that it is justified, that there's justice involved, and that there's ethics? I mean, I'm just asking you, when they're racing against another company, right there, look at that number right there. All they're when they're under the gun. Look at Randy right there, Randy.
Yeah, but it is interesting that when he made this announcement of the encyclical the other day, the guy that was standing by his side is the co-founder of Anthropic. And so I do believe there are voices in the industry that do think along these lines. I mean, there's all kinds of red flags coming up, from various people in various places on AI that says, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little on this thing. And I think even there's a whole section in the encyclical that he writes about autonomous war and allowing AI to make war decisions on who gets killed and who doesn't get killed, taking the human aspect out of it completely. And, I think that what this encyclical is trying to do is to really make sure that it gives some framework for leaders in any walk of life and for people in general to realize that there needs to be guardrails on this stuff. And I think, ultimately, I'd love to sit down and talk to the Pope about that, but I think ultimately he would say that really is the whole basis of this, is that we need to be careful about how it's used.
Okay, but the guardrails, Randy, I'm going to let you talk in a second. I'm sorry. Me and Mike are going to let you talk, but I know you're absorbing everything, and something's about to come out of your mouth that's going to be so just monumental that and prophetic and prolific. But the bottom line is, what did you just say a second ago? I lost my train of thought. What did you just say? What was the last thing you said?
The fact of how we're using it and who's responsible for it and that kind of thing.
But I guess what I'm saying is, by the time that everybody decides to regulate all this, it's going to be too late. It's going to be, right. It's just, who's going to be the decision makers that actually come together and actually make this important enough? I don't think it's important enough in Congress. I don't think it's important enough, because the fact that you have to talk about certain aspects of this, even bring it up, everybody should understand that needs to be regulated and be, with a kid glove, and certain aspects of it we all need. Is awesome. But I just worry about how long it's going to take before anybody comes together to actually make a real decision on it. And that could take never. It could be never.
Yeah. Well, it's a dynamic thing, isn't it? So the big old elephant in the room is that, to Mike's earlier point that the genie's out of the bottle, what that genie has done is forever changed the arc of what work is going to look like in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And not just our culture, in the world. AI is going to change particularly a lot of white collar jobs. And that is a place that all the white collar people had always thought they were somehow
invincible.
They weren't going to get, and certainly if you were a coder, and now Claude can code better than most, so it's like, incredible. This idea. So the big elephant in the room is 15 years. What are the jobs going to look like? What is a job? How long does it take? And so there's a whole lot of stuff that I can imagine happening. I think you're going to see 4-day work weeks become something that's real.
Wait, back up. I've been telling us, why do you think I don't have to be me till Monday was written? I'm with you on that.
I know. So it's not all bad, but it's also not all good. But what I will tell you
No,
it
I
is,
agree.
it is necessarily going to be wildly different than it is right now. And so that's the big thing that an organization has to really get a hold of is the nature of work. I mean, we just take a look at what happened with COVID as far as remote work. Right after, after COVID, what the numbers were, it was like 80-20 was remote during COVID. Now it's come back a little bit, but it's still a huge number of people are able to work remotely. And so the fundamental nature of work has changed and it's going to continue to change. So I think that's going to be the arbiter of what becomes important and enforceable as it relates to issues of AI. The other thing I think you're going to see is that people are getting more savvy about how they use TikTok and how they you're already seeing younger people in particular begin to shut down and move away from or constrain the flow of streaming media. And that to me is a huge sign of made my heart go, because it shows me there's only so much you can take of this. 8 hours a day on streaming is, just about. So I'm hopeful that the human condition is going to ever so slowly and generationally adapt, but we're going to lose a whole bunch of people along the way. Whole lot of people are going to get hurt along the way. And so I don't want to take away from what you're talking about, Steve, because it is real.
Yeah,
hope
and I
it's not-
think, I mean, one of the quotes from the encyclical, the pursuit of greater profits cannot justify choices that systematically sacrifice jobs. And he talks about that whole idea of the common good. I think the other piece that he does touch on in this thing is this idea of common good from a standpoint of stewardship of resources, and the fact that AI is sucking up so many resources. I mean, we're seeing that right now in Sioux Falls because there's a big battle about data centers and how much power they use and how much water they use and the amount of money that's being pumped into this stuff. It's all that aspect as well. Is, are we being good stewards of the resources that we have in order, or are we just throwing caution to the wind and saying, let's generate as much AI stuff as we can generate?
I think we're doing D. I think we're doing this. Make it
Yeah.
go, make it go.
Yeah, right. And
It's
I
a
mean,
race. It's a race.
Yeah.
It's like how much infrastructure can I get in during a period of time where there's no regulatory control on this? The rules are thrown out the window. It's the Wild West.
It is.
And get that thing built as fast as you possibly can.
Right. And I see
80 bar to door
now because there's a huge pushback. Right now there's a huge pushback in South Dakota to not allow these data centers in, or at least significantly restrict what they can use for power and water and all those kinds of things. The people have stood up and said, I'm not sure this is such a great idea, and so I think you'll see more of that pushback.
People in Georgia and people in Memphis, for example, that drinking water has been dramatically screwed up as a result of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, this is not going to go away. And I think that this infrastructure around AI is also a part of this fait accompli. It's already done. And now we just sort of have to suck it up. And it's all connected. It's connected to the satellites that are connected to Starlink. This is all these pieces are fitting in to create a world that's going to have a lot less privacy, where every single thing you do is going to be scanned and monitored and checked and measured. And, take a look at what Walmart already knows about you and it will blow your mind, So that's going to be on steroids.
Yeah,
it is. It's on steroids now, Interesting that this conversation. And I want you guys to know that the minute we get off of here, I'm going to ask AI something. I mean, no, but the truth is, I get those parts and elements for me, and I see the benefit. I'm not acting like, oh, Steve, whatever. I'm just talking about just being cautious enough and protective enough of the things that need to be protected and preserved. Not even protected, preserved, because of culture and culture, because of culture. That word alone stands for something, and culture are those things are created by incredible moments of creativity, or things that identify a place, a sense of place, a purpose, a person, and all of that. And those elements are just so key to those things. They can't be eliminated from the equation for a zillion years, as long as people preserve those, because they're built on something so beautiful and wonderful that they can never go away, and they have to be constantly reminded to folks in every generation that precedes and follows. That's all I'm saying. And I know where we're at. I get the horse and the buggy gets replaced by the horse is probably better off. Bless the horse's heart. You kill it. You're slapping it all the time with a whip and all this. Like my father-in-law was talking about it yesterday. I'm bringing that up because he was saying, I remember when the whip, they keep talking about the whipping the horse and all that. Well, that went away when all of a sudden Ford and everybody started creating cars. And
Right.
and there's some great benefit to that. And there was a great benefit to trains. And all of a sudden, towns were being formed around these tracks and that became all these incredible cities that have been, that have been so important for our growth. So I get the positive side. I get 75% of the positive side of AI.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the 25% or 30% that's gonna be reckless for a lot of people's lives, families, ethical stuff, the virtuous stuff. And that's my biggest concern.
Yeah. And I think Pope Leo is really bringing to light this idea of human dignity, the fact that we're all created in the image and likeness of God. And AI can't do that. AI can't create us in the image and likeness of God, and so it really begins with that whole aspect of dignity of the human person. And I think when we start the conversations with that and then figure out how we can use AI to help us with that, then then that works, But I hear somebody singing happy birthday in the background.
To you. Yeah.
All right. Hey, somebody's recording a podcast over here. It's
And they obviously
my
care.
it's my mother-in-law's birthday, and they looked at me and they said, "No,
Yeah, to heck with you. Yeah.
That's right. Who cares?
Yeah.
I love it. Love it. It's gonna be a big celebration." I think that it's a good time to wind it down since the party's getting started over here.
I was gonna say, yeah.
They got some of that margarita mix flowing over there. Is that what's going on?
Cecilia did bring her coops, her
There you go. Good.
flavors.
Good.
And last night it was used a lot, and she's got a good start to her brand. Cooped is called, what is the website? Getcooped.com. You
How do you spell Cooped? You got to order. I got to order some of that.
COUPD apostrophe D, but not apostrophe.
Well, you tell her by the time that we record the next podcast, I will have ordered some, and there'll be a drink in honor of her on the Lemon Drop Bar.
It's an
menu.
aperitif. They're aperitifs, and they're really good. Really good.
I just
her
like
senior thesis from college, and AI did not create it. I can tell you that. We'll end it with that. Hey, who wants to take this one home?
Randy, bring us home.
All right. Well, you know what,
Randy.
I think if we're doing this podcast 5 years from now, we'll probably still be talking about AI and trying to sort out what's going on. I think the important thing for our listeners is to switch your brain on to start being curious about this and paying attention to it. Switch your brain on to be more discerning about what you see. Start building an algorithm in your head that goes, well, that's AI, so that you begin to just see it when it happens and understand it. And then I think the other thing is to use AI. I mean, to Steve's point, the only way to really begin to understand this is to just start playing around with it and see what it can do and not do. And I think you'll find it to be useful, if not a little terrifying, when you get down the road. But at the end of the day, thank you, Pope Leo, for taking this stand. Very important. I think I would encourage everybody to go read the encyclical. It's very readable.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Mike,
Yep,
it's not like a lot of, there's not a lot of that going on.
No, it's very relatable.
Very
Right, really
relatable stuff.
Yeah.
And I think to your point also, Mike, it's good. Catholicism's got nothing to do with this as far as what he's actually saying we need to be worried about as human beings.
Exactly.
So let's take that part of the message and really bring it in.
Exactly.
And we can have some fun. And Steve, I will always love live music all the time. And,
absolutely.
Happy birthday to
happy birthday.
Look at what's going on right there, right? It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
All right.
Listen, we'll be back. Take it away there, Mike.
Back. You can find us at resonanceleader.com. Anything else, Steve?
Or you can find us on your doorstep if you bring us in live. Well,
there you
come
go.
on. I mean, I'm going to have a guitar strap. These guys are going to have all this incredible knowledge. Yeah. We can have a really open heart discussion and write something together when it's all said and done that will last forever within your own confines of your world.
Absolutely. All right. Till next time, guys, we're signing off.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.